Hi, this is Steve Cady, and welcome to the Collaborative Change Global Guide, Encyclopedia, Almanac. It's a living community of knowledge for sure, and we have an amazing group of authors that are bringing some of their best thinking to this collection. And at the core is the word or the words collaborative change. We're going to figure out what to title it as we do some of our surveying and working with focus groups. But for right now, we are looking at this community of knowledge, and we're building out a 5-volume set, and 2 more volumes to come behind the 5 volumes, and it's exciting. And we're getting contributors bringing their method, their approach, their perspective to this collection of knowledge every week, and it's super exciting. And at the heart of each and every person, at your heart of the work that you do as an author, is this hope and this belief that the world can be a better place, and that through collaborative processes and approaches, we can create a better world for all of us. And the other thing is that there are leaders, and there are consultants, and there are educators, and there are students and scholars who are very interested in learning from what you have to share and being a part of this meta community, this global community. Because see, each author is great at applying and developing solutions that are scalable, and they in turn start teaching others how to do what it is that they are passionate about and that they are expert in. And then on top of that, what really makes your work so much more useful is the fact that you write about it in ways that it's accessible to others, so that people can also adopt and practice what you are learning and doing. And with that, you get this community of practice. And this community of practice oftentimes can benefit from meeting and knowing others in other communities. And oftentimes people know 1 or 2 other communities. However, this is different. This is a meta community of communities where there are new approaches and methods and perspectives coming in, like I mentioned, every week. And we are finding them and bringing them in. And they're coming into this collection as a living community of knowledge. And in doing that, we are building an app that is going to have each chapter as a home base with the chapter, other content, a video playlist, a global calendar of events, a way to connect into your community. And so your chapter is not the end all. It is the beginning. It's a doorway. And as Juanita Brown describes it, it's a doorway into a central garden. We think of Nexus for Change as that organization that brings together everybody into that central garden and provides the support and tools so that we can all learn from each other, so that we can help and support each other, so that we can expand and develop new knowledge and innovate new ways forward. So this is a really exciting time, and you're a part of something really special, and I'm honored to be a part of that with you. And Carol and the team, Teo and Chaska and Adam and Chris and more people are joining us on the team to help us build all of this out. So, and many of the authors, I'm so grateful to the various authors that are taking the time to talk with us about how to make this work better for everybody. It's been inspiring, to say the least. So you received an email, and the email came to you giving you the instructions you need, the initial information to get started in creating your chapter. And what you received is a video link, which you're watching now, a writing template, which is you're looking at, and it's a Word document with instructions and a template that you can write into. There's an author agreement, and the author agreement is with me and the editorial team and Nexus for Change, so that we can then represent all the body of knowledge and chapters and so forth. And we can then partner with publishing partners in various formats, from print to digital and others. And so right now our goal is to work with Barrett Kohler, and we're still in the process of working through those details. So that agreement that you write with us and with me will enable us to be more nimble in how and where we bring the content and knowledge, because the intention is to make it as widely accessible as possible, so that we can invite people in, so that we can help your community grow and flourish, and so that you can have your community meet other communities and so forth. You also get 2 example chapters. liberating structures and collaborative arts. You get 2 chapters on the design elements. Started way back with Kathy Dannemiller, and what we were looking at as the 5 truths grew into these design elements, and now we have 8 core design elements. And these are the elements that experts, that people that have developed perspectives, methods, or approaches that have grown, have been widely adopted, and are being used all around the world with a community of practice and praxis. It's these 8 elements that are inherent in any methodology that has had that wide, broad adoption and impact. And 8 questions come with that, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But your chapter is driven at the core by these 8 elements. We also have the author jam sessions, and we begin with the authors. We have an author community, and we've been having jam sessions over the last 2 years. And these jam sessions are opportunities for authors who have applied and developed a scalable approach, that have been teaching and training others in it, have been publishing on it, and have this community of practice and praxis around their work. It's for those authors that have done all of that to be with other authors who have done all of that, so that you all can be in community together with your peers, so that you can co-create, co-support, collaborate, and have a safe place just to be and be together. So this document, the first 4 pages, I'm going to provide some instructions for you to get started and to go through the process of creating your chapter. Starting on page 5 is the template that you can write into for your chapter. So it lays it all out with the headers and the fonts and all that kind of stuff. And so when you're ready, you can delete the first 4 pages and begin on page 5, and that's your Word document that you'll submit to us. Because in the end, what you'll do is you'll submit your manuscript back to us in that Word document, which is what you have. You'll also send to us that Word document and each of your illustrations as separate TIFF files, and it's 300 DPI, and you'll submit that back to us, and then we will go through a process of reviewing and then bringing it into the body of knowledge. And we are going to have the 5-volume set, plus 2 additional volumes will be coming behind it, but we'll be launching an initial 5 volumes set with your chapter. We will also be getting chapters coming in that will be a part of a subscription service. And so we will be giving quarterly installments to people that have bought the book, they get the subscription service, and they are able to get additional content, additional chapters as we go. That's where the app comes in. The app is going to provide people with an opportunity to search, customize a playlist, so to speak, a chapter list of their favorites. It's going to allow them to see additional content on that chapter and that body of knowledge. It's going to allow them to find a video list, a global calendar, a whole bunch of other things around it, so that the app becomes that landing page on your chapter, you as the expert, and then it invites people into the world that you are inviting people into and into your community, and it gives them an entryway into that central garden. If you have any questions or concerns, we have a wonderful associate editor in Carol Gorlick, and she is available to schedule a one-on-one meeting. And I have to tell you, I don't have to tell you, I just want you to know how much we enjoy spending time with you. If you have a need, we just love it's the most incredible education, and it's an honor and a privilege to have the time to sit and coach, help, and support you in creating the chapter. We learn. I tell you, it's been the best learning experience of my entire life, and Carol will say the same for herself. So let's go to page 2, the chapter outline. It's a bit of it's a checklist, if you will. And so as you create your chapter, first is to be mindful of it's a 2,000 to 4,000 word chapter, max 5,000 words. You have your chapter number, you'll see that in the template. You have your authors, you'll see that, where to put them in the template. And you have your title. And one of the tips on the title is I'd like you to use at the front end the 1 to 3 word label for your approach, methodology, or perspective. The 1 to 3 word label that you have been most using, that people most identify with. Again, this is an entryway into all that you have created. So the intention is not to necessarily have your latest stuff, it's to have your most accessible, understood, and easy to follow content. And so that begins with the title, making sure that the first 1 to 3 words it's the ones that people identify with the most that invites them in. And then you can have a subtitle as you need. Put the founding date, and then have your favorite quote that sets the stage for the story that illustrates your method in action. It sets context. And this is a 500 to 750 word story. It's a short snippet of a story, if you will, that you'll have at the beginning that really helps people get in the right frame of mind for reading your chapter, and it makes them want to learn more about your approach, and it gives them a sense of what it looks like when it's being applied. And that 500, 750 words is it's a mini short story, if you will. Now here's the cool thing. One of our 2 additional volumes, because we have a 5-volume set, then we have 2 that are going to follow. One of the volumes that's going to follow the 5 is going to be on innovation and how people innovate approaches. The other one is going to be called Stories of Amazing Change. So you're going to take your 500 to 750 word snippet of a story at the beginning of your chapter. You're going to expand that into a 2,000 to 5,000 word story that will become a part of Stories of Amazing Change in that volume. And so we'll give you more information on that as we go. The first thing that we want to focus on are the chapters that are on your approach, method, or perspective. Now you get into the 8 elements of any methodology that has been scaled, widely adopted, and followed, and is making a difference in the world in a profound way. These 8 elements, you'll write about each one of them, and they have a question that goes with them. I'm going to talk about these in just a second, but you can see it's the invitation. And the question is, what is the invitation to the people that come into your approach? What's your best way of inviting them in? And then it goes into why use the approach, purpose, who needs to be involved in the approach, system, how does it work, experience, technology, how is technology leveraged, what are the theoretical and empirical foundations, the evidence, what are the core principles, values, and how do I become confident and competent in the approach? That's mastery. There's a section for frequently asked questions, concluding comments, your final thoughts, a bio for you and the other authors who wrote the chapter, 50 to 75 words. Then a list of resources where people can find out more information in terms of finding your organization, finding you, those kinds of things. And then we wrap up with a bookshelf. And what we're looking for is for you to provide us with a list of your, 3 to 10 most influential books, articles, videos, movies, poems, resource, anything that influences, inspires, and informs you that you keep nearby. And what are those things? And you want to list what it is and why, a sentence or 2 on why it's that important to you to be on your bookshelf. I'd like to also talk a little bit about visuals. One of the things is that when you write your chapter, it's not about new content per se. It's about you pulling from the best of your content, your books, your articles, your chapters, your speeches, your talks, your workshops, your handouts, your different things, your quotes, your blog post, your interview that someone had you on a radio show or a TV show or whatever it might be, or a podcast. It's about taking all of that and taking the best of all of that and weaving it together into the outline that I just described to you above. Now, in doing that, you bring the best of your comments, the best of your framing, the best sentences and the paragraphs and words, and you weave all of that together into the chapter. And then sprinkle throughout that instructive visuals. And in visuals, there are 3 kinds. I think of there are ornate visuals, there are complementary visuals, and then there are instructive visuals. And what you want to bring into this chapter are the instructive visuals that help to make your content more accessible. These are the visuals, the diagrams, the charts, the images and illustrations that when someone reads, they get it at a deeper level because of the image, or it helps to show the relationships among things and so forth, or the flow between things, or the contrasts from one end of the spectrum to the other, whatever that might be. And so pick your best visuals, the ones that have had the most impact, and sprinkle those throughout as appropriate in the outline. Let's go to the next page. So you go to page 3. This is the 8 methods, the innovation design elements, as I might call them. And essentially, like I said, anybody who has developed a methodology, an approach, a perspective that has now been widely adopted by others around the world, and that has people following, people sharing, and people learning and advancing on your perspective or your approach. These are the 8 core elements that all of these widely adopted approaches tend to share. And so what I did here was I lay it out in terms of the innovator. How does the author tend to describe these 8? What are these 8? And then on the right is the reader's perspective. What does the reader typically ask? So you can see as you begin that there's an invitation. You are really good at inviting people into your methodology or approach or perspective. You have a way of inviting people in that sets the stage for saying, here's the problem in the world, here's the need, here's the opportunity, here's the yearning, here's something in the world that is really, really important. And it's a question. And the answer is, I have an approach that can help. And it's XYZ approach. That's the invitation. The invitation doesn't say, here's what the approach can do for you. It really is setting the stage for saying, here's the problem, here's the possibility, here's the question, here's the need, and in the world, and I've got this approach that can help with that. Then you move immediately into the purpose and outcomes of your approach. So the invitation section tends to be a few paragraphs, 1 to 2, maybe 3 paragraphs that sets the stage for then saying, okay, here's my method, here's my approach, here's my perspective. And then it flows right into the purpose. And you start talking about the purpose and what are the benefits and the meaning of that. So it's the approach enables the achievement of mutually desired outcomes through the purposeful experience of sharing among 2 or more people. And you describe the unique purpose of your approach and the unique benefits that your approach brings to that need that was described in the invitation. So it answers the question, why use this approach? How will this approach benefit me and those I care about? How is the world different from using the approach? And then that's the section, purpose. The next one is system. And that addresses who needs to be involved, who uses and participates in this approach from different levels, places, and perspectives. What other factors in the system need to be considered in addition to the people? So the approach is, typically looks at how inclusive, it describes how inclusive it is and how it incorporates the wisdom of all of the people that connected into the change initiative or into whatever the collaborative approach is focused upon. The approach enables participants to see more of the system, the relationships among themselves and all the people that need to be involved. So that's the system section. The experience. What you are really good at doing is describing an experience that people can see themselves practicing. I can tell you from my students in our Executive Master's Program, from the writing that you all have, and from the Change Handbook to the Large Group Methods book to the Large Scale Change, the different book, when they look at your specific books or those collections that have described your approach, and they look and analyze them, I can tell you students have contacted me before we have our first residency weekend, and they're already doing an open space or a future search or a this or a that. It's amazing to see the people just take off running because you have a unique way in which you describe your approach and the processes in simple ways. And so that's the experience section. It describes that experience and how to facilitate and implement it. You move into technology. This is a new dimension or element because now we are beginning to ask, how do we use technology when we're in person together or when we are at a distance? And can your approach be used virtually? Can it be used? Can technology be used in the room when people are together? So it's really asking you to look at this notion of mechanical and electronic technologies, how you leverage them and use them when people are together in the room or when they're dispersed virtually. The next section is evidence, and that really gets at the theoretical and empirical support. And there's direct and indirect. So direct is research done specifically on your approach and your methodology, but you also draw from a variety of theories and research that supports and gives evidence to support, and you bring in that interdisciplinary perspective. So it is describing all of that and all of those foundations that support your methodology. And it can be theories, it can be research, it can be case studies, or it can be other people's methods that have been a part of informing you. So you want to talk about the evidence and all of that information you drew from and that you continue to draw from in supporting the development of and continuous improvement of your approach. Then you move into values. And at the core, there are, as what it says here, what are the core principles of the approach? What are the key ways in which that when your approach is used, that guides people in how they work together, how they act and how they interact. And it's behaviorally focused on how people treat each other and how people act in the facilitation of and participation within the approach. And oftentimes it answers the question, what are the do's and don'ts? What will you or will you not do? Those kinds of things. Now you get into mastery. Another thing that you are really good at is scaling your approach and making it accessible to a large group of people through one, great application and solutions and applying it through training sessions and through writing and through the community of practice. And so what you want to describe is how can a person come in to all of that and how can they learn? How can they find out more? Where can they get started? What do you recommend is the best way? Some approaches you can just like read a couple things and get started right away. And other approaches you need to be trained, mentored, apprenticed, and go through a series. It's the amount of preparation and training work is a lot, and some that's a little. But you want to describe how does one become masterful in the work and get started to also becoming advanced as an advanced master in the work. So that's the 8 design elements, and as I mentioned, it is at the core of the outline. So now when you go to we get to page 4, which is getting now into some of the nitty-gritty details of your document that you're preparing. So it's Times New Roman, size 12-point font, single space. The margins are 1 inch. There are no headers or footers, but you do have page numbers. It's a bottom right-hand corner. There, you can use bullets and numbering. However, I think it's very important to realize that a bullet is a list, and a list requires 2 or more items. So there's no such thing as a list of 1 item. So you need to have, if you have bullets, you need to have 2 or more. And every list of bullets needs to have a 3 to 5 sentence introduction that helps people know how to read and understand the bullets. And oftentimes it's good for the bullets to be followed by some kind of conclusionary so I'm looking at the bullets, I've got some introduction, I read through the bullets, and what do you say? Now that I've read through them, what do you want me to kind of take away, and what do you want me to get from that? So you want to think about using bullets strategically and making sure they have the appropriate surrounding content to help a person understand them. Sometimes bullets are best put into a table, and then you write a couple paragraphs to explain the table. So images, just put them in the document and also provide them as a TIFF file, that's 300 dpi. And these images are centered and in line with the text, so just put them in the center. When you look at the example chapters, you'll see how it's done. And you just drop your images in. You label your image, figure, number, or table, and title. And then so you got the images and tables, kind of the same thing there. So the method name or title case. So anytime that you refer to your method throughout the text, use title case for it. Author names in chapter story section only, otherwise use pronouns I or we. So you can use I and we throughout the story. You can use it anywhere else, but don't refer to yourself as names in the text of the chapter. Unless it's, there are a few cases where it might be appropriate to do that, but in most cases it's I or we or something along those lines. No hyperlinks throughout the body. You can have hyperlinks in the resources section. Headers and subheaders. The thing that I think is most important is really 3 levels of headers are the best. And you'll see down below on the next page where we set you up with your main headers and your subheaders. The level 1 headers are centered, bold, 16-point font, and we already provide them. They're done. You don't need to create the level 1 headers. Those are going to stay the same across all method chapters. And the reason being is we want some continuity to help the readers as they read through the chapters. Where the creativity and the unique nature of your work is displayed is in the content inside each of the level 1 headers. And so what you'll do is you can have side headers, level 2, which is side, title, bold, 16-point font. And then you can decide how many sections you want within the main level 1 header. So you have your level 1 headers already done. Then you have your side headers, 16-point font, bold, title. You decide what those titles are and what those headers are. It's up to you based on your content, your writing style, and how you want to organize within each of the main level 1 headers. Level 3, you can do level 3, so you might want to organize it in subheaders and then subheaders. And I would not go to level 4 unless you really need to. But so if you're doing a level 3 side header, what you want to do is that's going to be side, bold, 12-point font. And then there's no line space after that. You just start with the line, you do your content right after. But I wouldn't worry about some of those details as long as you know that you got your center header that stays the same for everybody. You create your side level 2 headers and your side level 3 headers. My recommendation, you stay at those levels. But many of you, and you have been writing a lot, so you know how you like to write, and you have editors that help you and those kinds of things. So this is to help us have some consistency across the writing to help the readers. So citations, use Chicago manual style, and you can have bibliography or references at the back. You can have endnotes and so forth. And here are some suggestions around that, as well as a link to learn more and see that. In terms of images, a minimum 300 DPI. The higher the DPI, the better. And they need to all be in a TIFF format. Tables don't need to be a file. You can just make tables in the Word document, unless, of course, your table really needs some different kind of graphics and becomes kind of an illustrated table. Then it needs to be a TIFF file. Provide each TIFF file as its own image file. Label it appropriately, and send it with your Word document. So now you can, once you've gone through all of this, you could print this thing out, you could save it, then you can go ahead and delete pages 1 through 4. And once you do that, you're now in your Word doc template. And you can begin. You don't have to worry about putting a chapter number there. We just kind of have it, there's a holding spot. Put your authors in over here. Then you put your title in. And remember, the front end, I'd like it to be the 1 to 3 word label that is most recognized for your methodology or approach. Put the founded date in here. Then put your epigraph or your quote, your favorite quote. Okay, so favorite quote here. And then you've got the title of your story. And then you insert your story here, 500 to 750 words. And then you go into the invitation. And as I mentioned, it's like 1 to 3 paragraphs. And basically it sets the stage by describing that need, problem, opportunity in the world, that question that needs to be addressed. And then your punchline in this section is, and our methodology, this approach has been designed specifically to address this particular need, problem, or opportunity in the world. Then you go into, okay, let's tell you a little bit more about the approach and why to use it. And so you begin to, start out, you can have an introductory paragraph or 2, then you can get into level 2 subheaders or level 3 subheaders if you want. Delete these as you need to, but you got it all here, and you basically create your content around purpose in here. Then you move to the system, who needs to be involved, and insert your content here. And always, you don't go from one header to the next header. You should always have some type of content that sets the stage for the next level set of subheaders. And you need to have, in order to have one subheader, you need to really have 2. You can't have just one. So if you have level 3 subheaders, you need to have 2 or more to actually have level 3 subheaders. And so that's all set up here for you to do that. And you just kind of copy, paste, or use it as you want. You go into and talking about the experience and how does it work. These all stay the same. As you know, the level 1 headers here. This is a level 1 header here, and so forth. This is a level 1 header here, and this is a level 1 header here. These all stay the same. This one, you add the title in. That's your unique title. And so as you go through, you talk about technology. And you see I didn't put level 2 or 3 subheaders. Here's what I've found so far with the people that have contributed. Because we have, I think we're now at about 100, right around 100 chapters have been submitted. And we're getting in a few more as we round it out. And we're able to do that because we went from a 1-book solution to a 5-volume set with 2 volumes to follow and a living community of knowledge approach with an app, which enables us now to have a print version with 5 volumes. And in that, we have a lot of people that have submitted, and we're finding that this section is growing. It's an emerging area for many people, and so it tends to be a paragraph to 3 paragraphs describing how technology is leveraged. And those that are, some approaches are more sophisticated and will likely need level 2 and level 3 subheaders. That's perfectly fine. I just have found that it's typically about 1 to 3 paragraphs it tends to go here. The evidence-based section here, this one also probably has level 2 subheaders, doesn't have a lot of level 3 subheaders. Typically you want to have an introductory content and then organizing your evidence. And again, it's theoretical, empirical foundations, it's methods and approaches, it's case studies. It's those kinds of things that inform your development of your approach and the continuous improvement of your approach or methodology. And then you get into the core values of the approach, and you have, your here, and then you get into mastery here. And so it's all set up and you can just start filling it in. And again, as I've mentioned, draw from your content, your chapters, your books, your workshops, your handouts. And what I have found particularly interesting, which I meant to say, is that when you come all the way back up here to the invitation, we are finding that most of you, your websites and your workshops and the quick upfront stuff for your content and your methods and approaches, the upfront websites a lot of times have that invitation right there. It's the very compelling upfront enticement to come in, the compelling statement of, hey, we know what's that needed and so forth. So coming down here, like I was saying, is draw from all of that to fill in all of these sections. And what I also have found is a side tip that people have found helpful. Once you do all of that, sometimes just having someone sit and just interview you and tape record it and just sit. I call them butterfly interviews, because a lot of times when people are talking with you and you're just elaborating and they're getting you excited and they're asking great questions, you're all of a sudden going to find yourself saying something. You go, what did I say? Oh God, I wish I could have written that down. So if you're tape recording it, it keeps the butterfly there with you, and you can pull that butterfly in and use it in your writing. So I encourage you to draw from all that you have done. Bring the best of your content in, sprinkle throughout the great visuals that you've already used that have had a great impact and that you found to be very useful to people, and bring it into these 8 elements. Then you get into frequently asked questions, which a lot of you have blog posts and other types of interviews. You can bring no more than 3. I have 2 here. I'd say 1 to 3 questions and answers. And remember, you got your word count, and max 5K. And then you got your final comments, and then you got your author bios, and then you got references and the key resources, and you can use endnotes as needed. And then you got organizations, what you want people to be able to go to, some key links to your work, others' works, associations, organizations, those kinds of things. And then you got the personal bookshelf. And the personal bookshelf doesn't count in your word count. It is, we're going to take and pull that out and do the author's bookshelf as a chapter, and we're going to actually bring that into the app, and we're going to do a lot of fun stuff with this, because there's some really great resources and influences on people, and there's some themes, there are some common sources and those kinds of things. So we'll be sharing that with you as we go. And that's it. So I hope you found this helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to contribute. On behalf of all of the students and all of the educators and all of the people practicing and consulting and leading out there, and the people that have already benefited from the work that you are doing and the people that are going to benefit, thank you for taking the time to contribute to this, because by putting all of this content together into one community of knowledge, I think we are going to have a better chance of seeing our world transform into that kind of world we yearn to see. So thank you. I am privileged and honored, and along with the team, we just want to say we are so glad to be on the journey with you. Bye for now.